Hey everyone, it's Eric with FirearmTutorials.com, and today we're going to look at the FNX 45 Tactical. I'm going to give you guys a look at some of the features of this gun, the specs of it, and my impressions of it. So right off the bat, you'll notice that with the Tactical model, we get a longer threaded barrel and some taller sights here. You can see they're raised sights. So you get a lot of features out of this gun for the money. It is expensive. I couldn't actually find the MSRP, but just from what I was able to find, prices online and in stores, it's about $1,200, give or take about $100. So with that, you get the gun itself, 3 magazines, and a zippered case. I borrowed this gun from a friend, so I didn't get all the good stuff with it, but it was enough to get me started with it and give you guys my impressions of it. So like I said, you're going to get a lot for that money. Other guns in this category, you usually get 2 mags, and you don't really get the zippered case anymore. That's something that FN is still doing that I wish some other manufacturers would start doing. But back to business, we've got the 5.3-inch threaded barrel. Like I said, the 3 magazines. The gun's made in the USA. Everything is ambidextrous on it, so you'll see we've got ambidextrous safety and decock levers on each side. We've got the magazine release here. You can see it's on the left and right side, this little button. And then we've also got the slide release on here, which I can say when I first got my hands on this gun, I wasn't thrilled with the slide release because it's kind of so small and it feels like it's a little hard to get to, and when you actually push it, it seems really hard to actuate. But something about once you have the magazine in here and the gun loaded, I was able to have no problems with it once I was actually shooting it. Another thing about this gun that you won't find on most guns in this category is the top here has the ability to put a red dot on here. So if you've got a Trujicon RMR, Leupold Delta Point, something like that, anything built in this form factor, you just unscrew these, pull the plate off, and then bolt your red dot down. Due to the taller sights, you actually will get a co-witness with the red dot, or you're able to set it up that way if you wish. So that is definitely a neat feature for this type of gun. As far as the rest of the configuration of this gun, you've got a pretty good size grip on here. I have larger hands, and you'll see on here that I've still got plenty of room left on the bottom here, which I don't have on a lot of other guns. So those of you guys with big hands, you'll have no problems firing this guy. In addition, it comes with the adjustable or replaceable back straps in different sizes. Like I said, I borrowed this from a friend, and this is what he had on it. So if it were me, I would probably put some larger ones on it, but nonetheless, I was still able to shoot it just fine with the smaller ones on. The checkering on this guy is really impressive. I'll give you guys a better look at it here, but it seems to work pretty well. And overall, it was a great gun when I got to shoot it, and I don't really have any complaints. Everything in this gun is extremely well made. So I looked around inside and out. I couldn't find anything that indicated they took any shortcuts. Nothing seems cheap on it. None of the materials seemed cheap, or anything was poorly designed. So you're definitely getting a quality firearm, which you should for a $1,200 price tag. But on some guns, I can always find something that I feel they tried to cut corners on, or could have designed better. This one's not the case. If we go ahead and look at some of the other features here, so you've got, like I said, it comes with 3 magazines, but you actually get 15 rounds on this, which is rare in a 45. Glock will give you 13, HK will give you 12, but to get 15 rounds is pretty impressive. In addition, these taller sights are actually night sights, which is also another bonus because you don't always get night sights. You get taller sights on some of these tactical pistols, but they don't always glow. So I was surprised by that. And they are metal, so if you wanted to manipulate the slide by catching the sights on, something like a rock or a piece of wood or anything like that, you don't have to worry about them breaking. So that's another plus. What I will say is the trigger wasn't exactly all I had hoped. It does have a more straight design, unlike some of the other guns you see where they have a real curved trigger. So some of you guys that are used to shooting a flatter or straighter trigger like 1911s or something like that, you may shoot this one better. I felt that right off the bat I was able to shoot it fairly accurately with no prior experience. So personally I like a flatter trigger, so that's worth mentioning for some of you guys. In addition, the trigger pull itself, I'll try and get close to the microphone here and see if you can hear it, but give it one more time. To me, it feels like plasticky or springy, a lot like you would find on a striker trigger. So something to mention, it's still a decent trigger. The break isn't quite as crisp as I was hoping, but nonetheless, it's a decent trigger. As far as pull weights go, double action, the lowest pull I was able to read out of it was 10 pounds, 6 ounces. It was usually around 10 pounds, 10 ounces or somewhere in between. Single action, it was 4 pounds, 7 ounces was the lowest I got, and usually hovered around 4 pounds, 10 ounces. So pretty decent trigger pulls, and it's not as heavy as a double action trigger pull as you'll find on some other single action, double action guns. So I was impressed by that. The trigger guard, you've obviously got plenty of room in here. If you have gloves on or anything like that, you don't have to worry about running out of space. The fit and finish on this is fantastic. This is more of a dull, it's kind of like an HE finish you'd find on the HK, the harsh environment finish. It doesn't reflect light. You'll see I kind of tried to move it around here to see if it would reflect from the lights above, and didn't seem to get anything. So it seems nice and durable, and you'll see there's a little bit of wear here on the barrel hood because this gun was practically brand new when I started shooting it. So other things I noticed, these control levers, they are nice and short. The operation on them is very short, whether you go from safe to fire. It is deliberate. You can feel it and you can hear it, and the travel to each of these positions is pretty short, so I liked that. The hammer as well, I liked. It's all steel, and you'll notice that the frame is polymer, but right around the hammer, right here and here, is steel as well. So I think that's probably to aid in protecting the hammer from breaking if you were to drop it or catch it on anything. It's not going to mess up the frame, and it's not going to mess up the function of the gun. So another neat feature, I thought, and it's got a pretty aggressive texture on it. It's got a nice rough texture that you can catch your fingers on, whether you have gloves or you're shooting the gun and your hands are wet. You should have no problems operating the hammer. One thing I did notice, though, worth mentioning, is this is something I don't see on a lot of single action, double action guns. When it's in safe, the trigger will actually go all the way to the rear, versus a lot of other guns, it'll kind of stop like this. This will let you take it all the way to the rear. Just something worth mentioning. I don't know if you guys really care about that or not, but it was just something I noticed. In addition, I was skeptical about this at first, but the barrel, you'll notice, tilts a lot. When you pull the slide back, there's a lot of barrel exposed here, and that was something FN did to reduce recoil. Now, every gun has something that they've done that they supposedly did to reduce recoil, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but this actually does work. I was very surprised once I started shooting it that it was noticeable just right off the bat, first 1 or 2 shots. I thought to myself, wow, this actually does have less recoil. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. Let's take a look at the internals, and then I'll tell you guys a little bit about my experiences shooting it. I've got some footage as well for you guys. I like the way this slide comes down where you turn this little guy. So if we look at the slide itself, you'll see we've got some rather familiar components. Looks like we've got a firing pin block back here. Recoil spring looks almost identical to a Glock recoil spring, and I noticed that it was pretty stiff. Of course, you got your barrel in here. I'm not going to show you that. That's just the usual stuff. This is what kind of impressed me, this frame here, just the intricate design. I haven't seen many pistols that use a trigger bar that runs along both sides of the gun. That was unique. And there's a little spring in here, which I think is the source of that springy, plasticky feeling. But the rest of this stuff, I mean, the way the hammer operates and the sear engagement, all of these things look pretty complicated. I can detail strip a USP, but I would say I'd be pretty scared to detail strip this, and just by looking at some of these parts, I'd be surprised if I could detail strip this and get it back together without messing some part up and having to buy a replacement part. Some of this stuff in here is plastic, but of course everything that needs to be metal is metal. So that's pretty much for the that's pretty much it for the internals. Like I said, the gun is fairly easy to take down and put back together. So shooting the gun, let's talk a little bit about that. You see here I'm shooting the standard 230 grain ball ammo. Some of this is my reloads. Some of them are actually factory. Aguila 230 grain was the factory ammo I was running through this gun. Unsuppressed, no problems at all. Every magazine I put through worked just fine, had no problems. Accuracy was good right out of the box. Now, I didn't necessarily think I would have an issue running this gun suppressed because it was very well built. I had no problems unsuppressed. So I screwed my Tyrant 45 on there. Right out of the gate, a couple rounds through, and had a stoppage. So first, it was that the shells weren't being ejected all the way. They weren't stovepiping. They actually weren't even getting that far. You'll see here that the slide is stuck about halfway back because the shell was getting caught right in the breech. As soon as I cleared it, it was fine. Then it would do it again. Switched ammo, switched the piston on my Tyrant, and like I said, I was using a booster in this. This wasn't my first rodeo, and I've had no other problems using the same combination of ammo I did in this gun, yet I still would have a couple different stoppages. Later you'll see I have a problem where they wouldn't even eject at all, and at the end of the day I did a little research on it, and after comparing the amount of force it takes to pull this slide back compared to an HK, I just chalked it up to a stiff recoil spring. A little confused about why it would fire just fine unsuppressed, and then suppressed I would have cycling issues, because usually when you shoot a gun suppressed, the booster is actually adding more recoil, so the slide is operating with even more force behind it. But that's pretty much as far as I got with that. A couple people said they had a similar issue. One guy said he just left the slide locked back for about a week in a safe and then went to shoot it again and it was fine. Haven't tried that. I haven't shot it since the footage that you see here. I'm not going to say it's a design flaw. I'm not going to say that there's an issue with this gun, because I think it's just one of those things. And if I were to put a couple hundred rounds through it, or even some hotter ammo, I'm sure it would correct itself. That's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, you're not going to get the features that you get on this gun for the money. There's nobody else on the market that sells something like this with the 3 magazines, the raised knife sights, the threaded barrel, and the zippered case. It's definitely a buy on my list. I'll buy one of these eventually at some point. You know, even though I'm a big HK fan, I was really impressed. That's it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.